Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. So, picture this. Maybe you're scrolling online, right? Stunning photos. White sand, turquoise water, those amazing green hills. And there it is, a beautiful villa, maybe a chic condo looking out over the Andaman Sea. You
Yeah.
start dreaming, yeah? Owning a place in somewhere really, well, exotic like Phuket. But then, reality kind of kicks in. How does a foreigner actually buy property in Thailand? It's definitely not like buying down the street back home, is it? Oh, and just a quick heads up, a friendly tip if you're planning a visit or thinking of investing, it's pronounced Phuket.
Yeah, Phuket, not Phuket.
Exactly, helps smooth things over with the locals. So today we're diving deep, really getting into the intricate stuff about property ownership for foreigners in Thailand, specifically in Phuket. We're going to unpack the differences, the real nuts and bolts of freehold versus leasehold tax and ownership.
Mm,
And look, our insights today, they come from a really detailed article by Ocean Worldwide. They're a luxury real estate agency actually based right there in Phuket, been there since 2004.
that's right. And their director, Sandra O'Neill, she's got incredible experience, helped literally thousands of families, investors too over the years.
Yeah, they really specialize in that high-end residential stuff in Phuket and Koh Samui, so it's like a gold mine of info we're drawing from.
Absolutely. And our mission for you today is really to cut through all the legal stuff, which can feel like a maze, honestly. We want to give you a clear comparison. Freehold, leasehold, focusing on the money side, the practical things, especially taxes, fees, all that. The goal is simple. Yeah. You walk away from this deep drive feeling confident, knowing what's what, so you can make smart choices and, well, avoid any nasty surprises down the line.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Before we get into the real nitty-gritty of taxes and fees, we need to understand what freehold and leasehold actually mean in the Thai context, especially for those of us, not from Thailand.
Right, good place to start. Because the terms might sound familiar, but how they work there is specific.
Yeah.
So the core difference, it's pretty fundamental. When we talk freehold in Thailand, for foreigners, that mostly means condo units, condominiums.
Okay.
You own the unit outright. You get a title deed, the Shinode. It proves you own that specific space. Plus, you get a share of the common areas, pool, gym, that kind of
That
thing.
makes sense.
But here's the thing. The land itself, you don't own that directly. It's owned by what's called a condo juristic person. Think of it like the management company or the owners association.
Ah, okay.
But for your unit, it's permanent ownership. Like you own the whole cake,
Yeah.
your slice completely.
The whole cake. I like that. So what about leasehold then?
Leasehold is a different animal.
Mhm.
This is often the main route if you're dreaming of a house, a villa, maybe even just land. You're not buying the property itself, technically. You're buying the right to use it
Yeah.
for a set time.
A set time, like renting.
Well, yes and no. It's much longer term. The most common lease is 30 years. But, and this is key, you can usually renew it.
Renew it. How?
Typically, you can get 2 more 30-year periods. So 30 plus 30 plus 30, that adds up to 90 years of, effective use.
90 years. Okay, that's a long time.
It is. You sign a lease agreement with the actual owner, the freeholder. It gets registered legally at the land department. But critically, it's not permanent ownership like freehold. It's more like a very, very long-term rental agreement. You get to use the cake, but just for a set number of years.
Right. And this links back to a key point about Thai law, doesn't it? The restriction on foreigners owning land directly.
Exactly. That's the snag for non-Thais. The law generally restricts direct land ownership. It's a way to balance foreign investment with keeping land predominantly in Thai hands.
So you can buy a condo unit freehold.
Yes, but even then there's a limit. Foreigners can only own up to 49% of the total saleable floor space in any single condominium building. The other 51% has to be Thai-owned.
49%. Okay, that's important to know.
Very. So this means if your dream's that villa, that house with a garden, leasehold often becomes the most accessible route. It lets you live there, use the property for decades, enjoy it, even if you don't technically hold the title deed to the land itself. It's how many foreigners enjoy fantastic properties in places like Phuket.
Okay, that clarifies the structures. Now let's talk money, because let's be honest, that's usually front and center. The upfront costs just getting the keys in your hand, how different are they? Freehold versus leasehold.
Yes, the wallet watch part. They are quite different, and it can make a big difference to your initial budget. Let's look at the transfer costs you pay at the land department. For freehold property, these costs tend to be higher, generally. You've got the main transfer fee. That's 2% of the property's appraised value or the registered sale price, whichever is higher.
2%. And who pays that?
Typically, it's split 50-50 between the buyer and seller, but like many things here, it is negotiable. Always worth discussing.
Right. Anything else for freehold?
Potentially. There's stamp duty, which is 0.5% of the registered value, but that usually only applies if the specific business tax doesn't.
Specific business tax.
Yeah, that's 3.3% of the appraised value or sale price. It kicks in if the seller's a company or if an individual seller has owned the property for less than 5 years.
Okay, 3.3%. That's quite a bit.
It can be. Usually it's the seller's responsibility. Same with withholding tax. That's 1% if the seller is a company, or calculated on a sliding scale for individuals based on how long they've owned it.
Usually the sellers, but negotiable again.
Always negotiable. That's a key theme. Get it in writing.
Good advice. Okay, so that's freehold, potentially higher fees, often seller paid but negotiable. What about leasehold upfront costs? Leasehold registration costs are generally lower. The main one is the lease registration fee. That's 1% of the total lease value for the whole agreed term.
Total value for, say, 30 years or 90.
Or whatever the registered term is. So if it's a 30-year lease, it's 1% of the total rent agreed for those 30 years. There's also stamp duty, which is much smaller, 0.1%. So 1% lease registration plus 0.1% stamp duty for leasehold versus potentially 2% transfer plus maybe 3.3% SBT or 0.5% stamp duty, plus withholding tax for freehold, though who pays varies.
Exactly. Leasehold looks cheaper up front in terms of these specific registration fees.
Right, which underlines your point, getting absolute clarity on who pays what and nailing that down in the purchase agreement.
Well, it sounds like it could save a lot of arguments and money down the line.
Absolutely critical. Avoids those nasty surprises we talked about.
Okay, so we've got the initial costs covered, but owning property isn't just about buying it, is it? What about the long game, the ongoing taxes?
That's a really important question. Because the ongoing tax burden, well, it can add up, and it does differ depending on how you own the place.
So how does that break down?
Well, for freehold, once you're past those initial transfer fees and taxes, there isn't really a specific annual property tax just for owning it, like you might find in other countries. Not in the same way.
The specific business tax and withholding tax we mentioned, they generally apply when the property is sold. So they're usually the seller's responsibility at that point, not an ongoing annual thing for the owner just sitting on the property.
Right.
Unless, of course, you become the seller later on.
Right. Makes sense. So relatively clear for freehold on the ongoing side. What about leasehold?
Leasehold can be a bit different, especially if you plan to rent out your property.
Ah, okay. How so?
If you, as the leaseholder, decide to lease out your villa or house to someone else, generate rental income,
Yeah.
you might find yourself liable for an annual rental tax. It's typically calculated at 12.5% of the yearly rental income you receive.
12.5%. Okay, that's significant if you're planning to rent it out.
It definitely needs factoring in.
Yeah.
So you see the trade-off starting to emerge, right? Leasehold might seem cheaper initially with those lower registration fees at the land department, but then you have to weigh those potential long-term tax liabilities, like the rental tax, plus maybe a potentially lower resale value as the lease runs down. Weigh that against the higher initial costs and fees often associated with freehold.
So it's not simply a case of one being definitively cheaper overall. It depends on your plans for the property, how long you'll hold it, whether you'll rent it out.
Precisely. It's a calculation based on your individual circumstances and investment strategy.
Okay, so bearing those costs in mind, why would someone still lean towards leasehold? You mentioned accessibility.
Yeah, absolutely. For many people, it really is about getting your foot in the door, managing that big initial capital outlay.
Making it more affordable.
Significantly so, often. Leasehold generally means a lower purchase price compared to an equivalent freehold property. We're often talking maybe 10%, even 15% lower.
Wow, 10 to 15%. Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say, hypothetically, a freehold villa is priced at, 75 million Thai baht. A comparable leasehold version might be closer to, say, 63 or 64 million baht.
That's a huge difference up front.
It's a considerable saving right out of the gate, yeah. And then, as we discussed, the actual registration fees at the land office are generally lower, too.
So lower purchase price, lower registration fees.
Exactly. Plus, it gives you access to properties in really prime locations that might be, frankly, unaffordable if they were sold freehold. Think about places like the Laguna Complex in Phuket, or those stunning beachfront villas. Leasehold can make those spots more attainable.
Right. Access to desirable areas.
And then there's the time factor we touched on. That potential for 30 plus 30 years, up to 90 years of occupancy. Well, okay, it's not forever, but it's a pretty substantial chunk of time to enjoy your property, isn't it?
90 years is definitely a long time, enough for most people's lifetimes and maybe even the next generation.
For sure. It allows for long-term enjoyment and use.
And you mentioned something earlier. Some developers offer buyback options.
Yes, some do, particularly with leasehold properties.
Yeah.
It can add another layer of financial flexibility, potentially offering an exit strategy. But, and it's a big but,
Always read the fine print.
always, you need to scrutinize the terms of any buyback, the price, when you can exercise it, any penalties. It needs careful review.
Yeah.
But yes, overall, lower initial cost, access to prime spots, and long-term occupancy make leasehold very tempting for many.
Okay. But then there's the flip side. For some people, that dream of true, actual, outright ownership is, well, paramount. So what's the big draw for freehold? It sounds like control and long-term value.
Absolutely. That's the heart of it. With freehold, you get, as I said, the full package. Unrestricted rights, permanent ownership,
For expiry date.
no expiry dates, no landlord looking over your shoulder. You own the bricks, the mortar, the unit itself if it's a condo. You can use it, live in it, rent it out, sell it whenever you want, pass it down to your kids. It's your asset, period.
That permanence definitely has appeal.
And that leads to another major benefit. Freedom. Freedom to renovate, modify, really make the place your own.
Right. Unlike leasehold where you might need permission.
It's exactly. With leasehold, significant changes often require the freeholder's okay. But with freehold, want to knock down a non-structural wall, redo the kitchen, landscape the garden, if applicable. It's your call. You have the autonomy to improve the property, add value, and tailor it to your exact taste.
That's a big plus for many people wanting to put their own stamp on a place.
Huge. And then there's the resale market. Generally speaking, freehold properties tend to be, well, just more attractive when it comes time to sell.
Why is that? Simplicity.
Partly simplicity, partly the security it offers the buyer. People often prefer the straightforwardness and permanence of freehold. This can mean your property potentially holds its value better, might be easier to sell, and puts you in a stronger negotiating position as the seller.
Okay, so freehold offers permanence, control, freedom to renovate, and potentially better resale value and desirability.
That sums it up well.
But the trade-off, as we established, is usually that higher initial price tag and potentially higher transfer fees and taxes up front.
Correct. It's an investment decision. For many, especially those thinking very long-term or about legacy, the benefits of freehold outweigh the higher initial costs.
Makes sense. It's about weighing those priorities.
Now, while leasehold offers that attractive accessibility, we do need to talk a bit more about the potential catches, the limitations. Because how these play out in practice, well, it really impacts your experience and your future options.
Right. The potential downsides of leasehold. We touched on modifications needing permission from the freeholder for big changes. That limits your freedom to renovate, doesn't it?
It certainly can. If you're someone who loves to customize your space, leasehold might feel restrictive. You're bound by the terms of the lease and the freeholder's willingness to approve changes.
And what about other restrictions, like rules set by the landlord?
Yes, that's another factor. The lease agreement itself will outline specific rules. These can cover all sorts of things. How you can use the property, maybe restrictions on pets, rules about subletting it to others.
So you really need to read that lease carefully before signing.
Absolutely essential. These conditions can definitely impact your lifestyle and how much you enjoy the property, especially if you weren't expecting them.
And then there's the resale value issue again, tied to the lease length.
Correct. This is a big one. As the lease term gets shorter, say you use 20 years of a 30-year lease, leaving only 10 years, the property generally becomes less marketable. Its value tends to decrease.
Because the next buyer only gets 10 years.
Exactly. Unless a renewal is already secured and guaranteed. While those 30 plus 30 renewals are common, the process isn't always automatic or straightforward. It might involve renegotiating terms, paying additional fees. There can be uncertainty there, which affects resale.
Okay, so limited control, potential landlord rules, and the lease duration impacting resale.
Yeah.
Those are key things to weigh up for leasehold.
Definitely. And this brings us back to the developers. Their role is crucial in how these structures are set up.
How so?
Well, developers usually price freehold units, especially condos, at a premium. They know buyers value that permanent ownership.
Right.
And as we mentioned, some developers offer leasehold deals with those buyback options, which sounds good, potentially provides an exit.
But read the fine print.
Always. You need to know the exact buyback price, the conditions, the timing, any penalties if you don't take it or if they can't fulfill it. It needs serious scrutiny.
So developer contracts in general, sound complex.
They absolutely are. These are significant legal documents. I really can't stress this enough. You must go through them with a fine-tooth comb.
What are the key red flags or things to watch for?
Okay, key things. Check the lease duration and renewal conditions. Are they clear? What are the costs? Are there restrictions on how you can use the property or renovate? What about common area fees and sinking funds? How are they calculated? Can they increase? Are there completion guarantees if it's off-plan?
Let's check.
It is. And the absolute best advice, get these contracts reviewed by an independent lawyer who specializes in Thai property law, especially for foreign buyers.
Not just any lawyer.
Preferably one with specific experience in this area. It's not just an expense, it's a critical investment in protecting yourself, a safeguard.
Right. Which leads nicely to the next point. Protecting your investment overall. Whether you land on freehold or leasehold, what are the absolute must-do steps for a foreign buyer in Phuket to make sure everything is legally sound?
Okay, essential steps, non-negotiable really. First, circle back to those taxes and fees. Negotiate the allocation clearly.
Who pays what?
Exactly, that 2% transfer fee, for instance. Is it 50-50? Did the seller agree to pay more? Get it explicitly stated in the sale and purchase agreement. Same goes for any potential specific business tax or stamp duty if applicable. Clarity up front saves money and hassle.
Okay, negotiate fees. What's next?
Due diligence. This is probably the most critical step. You, or rather your lawyer, needs to check everything.
Like what specifically?
Checking the property title deed, the chinote at the local land office. Confirming the seller actually owns it, that there are no outstanding debts, mortgages, or liens against it. Checking compliance with zoning laws, building regulations. Right? For leasehold, it means scrutinizing that lease agreement in minute detail. What are the renewal terms? Are they guaranteed? What's the reputation of the landowner, the freeholder? For condos, it means verifying that foreign ownership quota. Has the 49% limit been reached in that building?
So, digging deep into the legal status and paperwork.
Precisely. Skipping due diligence is just, well, it's asking for trouble. It's not worth the risk on such a big investment.
And the third essential step, you mentioned lawyers.
Professional legal guidance. It's not optional, it's mandatory in my view. Hire a reputable lawyer who is experienced specifically with Thai property transactions involving foreigners. Ideally, someone fluent in both English and Thai.
Why is that specific experience so important?
Because they know the system, the potential pitfalls, the right questions to ask. They'll review all the documents, draft or check contracts, ensure everything is legally compliant, handle the transfer at the land office, and advise you on the best ownership structure for your situation.
So they guide you through the whole process.
Yes. It might seem like an extra cost up front, but honestly, the peace of mind it buys and the potential problems it prevents, it's worth every single baht. A small price to pay, really.
Negotiate fees, thorough due diligence, expert legal counsel. Got it. Now, looking ahead, property laws aren't set in stone, are they? They can change. What should foreign owners or potential buyers be keeping an eye on for the future in Thailand?
That's a very forward-thinking question. And you're right, the landscape does evolve. One area that gets talked about periodically is potential changes to foreign land ownership rules.
Oh, like allowing foreigners to own land directly.
Well, there have been ongoing discussions, proposals floated about potentially allowing foreigners to own a small plot of land, maybe up to 1 ray, which is about 0.4 acres, roughly 1,600 square meters.
Okay. Under what conditions?
Usually tied to a significant investment in Thailand. The figure often mentioned is around 40 million Thai baht, invested in specific bonds or property for a set period.
40 million baht. So that's aimed at attracting wealthier investors.
Exactly. It seems aimed primarily at high net worth individuals, perhaps those on long-term resident visas. It's important to stress, though, this is still mostly in the discussion phase. It's not set in stone yet, and details could change. But it does show the government is actively thinking about ways to attract foreign investment, particularly at the higher end.
Interesting. So it signals a potential shift, even if it's not law yet.
Precisely. It highlights that Thai property law isn't static. It adapts to economic needs and trends. Understanding these potential shifts, or even just the direction of thinking, is important for making informed long-term decisions. What seems like the best option today might be viewed differently if regulations change down the road.
So how do people stay informed about these potential changes?
Good question. Monitoring official government sources is key, like the websites for the Thai Ministry of Lands, the Board of Investment. Consulting regularly with your Thai legal expert is crucial, as they'll be up to date. And connecting with established expat groups or business chambers can also be helpful for shared insights and updates. Staying informed is the best strategy.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. After diving into all this, the choice between a freehold and leasehold in Phuket, it really comes down to the individual, doesn't it?
Absolutely. There's no single right answer.
Freehold gives you that permanence, the complete control, the freedom to renovate, and generally a stronger position in the resale market. But you're likely paying more upfront in purchase price and fees.
Correct.
Leasehold, on the other hand, it's often more accessible financially. Lower initial investment gets you into those prime locations, but you've got to be mindful of the lease term, potential restrictions, maybe the annual rental tax if you sublet, and how the shortening lease affects resale value later on.
That's a great summary of the core trade-offs. It boils down to your personal finances, how long you envision owning the property, your tolerance for complexity versus simplicity, and ultimately, what your goals are. Is it purely an investment, a retirement home? Bit of both.
So really think about why you're buying and what's most important to you.
Exactly. And perhaps here's a final thought to leave you with, something to mull over. Given this dynamic nature we've discussed, the evolving laws, the changing economic factors, the investment opportunities in a place as vibrant as Phuket, how might future developments, legal or economic, continue to reshape the appeal and the very structure of both freehold and leasehold for foreign investors? And, maybe more intriguingly, what new factors or considerations might emerge down the line that we haven't even thought about yet?
That's provocative. It really highlights that this isn't a static decision.
Not at all. It underscores the need for ongoing awareness and, again, the value of getting good, current advice from local experts on the ground in Phuket. They can help you navigate not just today's landscape, but potentially tomorrow's as well.